What is going on, everyone? It is Tommy from the Peanut Gallery, back with an exciting new episode of the Kingpins Fantasy Podcast. We got Ryan and Pat on the show tonight. How are we doing, fellas?
I'm feeling good. Haven't been on in a couple weeks. For those who don't know, accidentally spilled like a whole glass of water on my laptop. It's been a real journey to get that fixed. So yeah, you'll notice if you're watching on YouTube, my window is a little different. We're on the phone today. But yeah, anything to be back. I'm glad I'm here.
You know what? I'm also feeling ecstatic. I went to Dick's Sporting Goods the other day, and I was planning on getting a pair of running shoes, but all I could I went to the clearance section. This hat was, guess how much? $3.30. Had to pick it up. Getting a
Wow.
little poof going in the back, so I had to get the visor.
That's a steal. $3.30.
Yes.
Wow.
Quite the bargain. Okay. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter at Peanut Gallery HQ, or on YouTube at the Peanut Gallery if you want to see what Pat's new visor looks like. Just to know, we are committing to releasing a Kingpins podcast every Wednesday in the future. So be on the lookout for that. We're going to be releasing one every single Wednesday. I think we got to kick off the show by talking about the $500 million man, Patrick Mahomes. He just signed a 10-year extension with the Chiefs, tying him to Kansas City until 2031. It's kind of crazy. We'll be in our 30s as we are all around the age of 20. And Mahomes will still be on the Chiefs, barring some unforeseen circumstances. The deal is worth $450 million and could potentially reach $503 million. What do we think about this deal, guys? Ryan, why don't you tell us your thoughts?
Yeah. So pre-show, I couldn't help myself. I gotta say, I'm not one who loves commitment in any facet of life. So the 10 years scares me. Granted, the salary cap is going to go up, but for the time being, Mahomes is a quarter of the salary cap on a 53-man roster. I don't really think that bodes well when some of the stars get paid. Chris Jones got paid today a fat amount. It's getting tough to see how they're going to build a strong team all around when they're paying out like they are. So we'll see. I don't love it for the Chiefs, but if anyone deserves it, Mahomes does. So.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, if anyone's going to get this kind of deal, it's Patrick Mahomes. At the age of 24, I feel like he's a safe bet for the next 10 years. But you never know. We could sit, like, injuries could get to him. Who knows? I got to say, I'm a fan of the deal for the Chiefs, though. Pat, do you have any thoughts?
Oh no, I was just gonna say I support. You got to give he's the best player in the game, and you got to treat him that way. I looked on Twitter, and it was like, who's going to be the best star among the four major sports in America over the next 10 years, and I couldn't see anyone else besides Patrick Mahomes as like the most solid pick for that. Like who else is it going to be? I mean, I think it's worth it.
Yeah. He's already got a Super Bowl under his belt and a Super Bowl MVP. So what are we thinking? Is this the birth of a new dynasty? Could this be like a Tom Brady and the Patriots situation, or what are we feeling about the Chiefs over these next 10 years or so?
I mean, the way the Patriots did the contract things was just drastically different. Brady getting extended like every year or two for the past, I don't even know how long, like 5 or 6 seasons. So, like I said, I have my concerns about the all-around talent this team will have when they're still shelling out a quarter of their cap 5 years from now. But if there is a dynasty on the rise, it's probably this one. I can't say any team really has the potential that the Chiefs have.
I also think that when you do have the best quarterback, there are players who are willing to take less money to get that one ring. So players like Antonio Brown, where he was ecstatic when he got that chance to play with Tom Brady for just one game. And I think when you look at all the stars and how they talk about Patrick Mahomes, they love him. Tyreek Hill, Tyrann Mathieu, who's on the other side of the ball, the whole locker room loves him. They love his demeanor, and I think players will be able to sacrifice money in the future for him.
Yeah.
It's a fair point.
Yeah. Last question about Mahomes. Since this is a fantasy podcast, how many of these years, these next 11 years, will Mahomes be a top 2 fantasy quarterback? Top 2.
I mean, this year was one of the years where you have to imagine that it will repeat itself, where he misses a game or two, he's dinged up. He's not really a guy where you expect catastrophic injuries, where you have worries he'll miss the whole season. But, just missing a game or two will put him outside the top 2. So if that happens, say 3 or 4 times, I would be willing to bet that just about every other year he would be top 2. So I'm giving him a good 6 or 7.
Wow. I mean, that's a pretty incredible number. If
Yeah.
6 or 7 of 11 years to be top 2, that's I was going to say closer to 3 or 4.
Wow.
Just because of how volatile the QB position is. Like, you see different names up at the top almost every year. I do think he's a safe bet, but yeah, the injury risk, I mean, you never know what's going to happen. So I would say 4 of the 11 years.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with 5. I think that's the safest amount just because we don't know what quarterbacks are going to elevate themselves to that level. I mean, Lamar is clearly the biggest contender right now for one of those top 2 spots for the next decade. And then after that, I mean, who else is it going to – once Trevor Lawrence joins the league, maybe he's on a pass-heavy offense. Josh Allen is always going to – I think he's going to be up there a lot along with Kyler just because they provide so much on the ground. But, yeah, if we're talking top 5, then I'm saying like 9 or 10 of the 11 years just because got to give 1 or 2 injury years. But, yeah, I'd say 5 for top 2.
All right, I like it. You just mentioned Kyler. Well, we're going to get into the Fantasy Tinder, the fan favorite segment, and we're going to talk about Kyler Murray's new number 1 receiver, and that is DeAndre Hopkins, who Fantasy Pros has going at pick 12, wide receiver 5. Where are we swiping on DeAndre Hopkins this season?
I guess I'll kick us off. I'm going right. I think it is a fair value at the back of the first round in a 12-team league. He had an off year last year, and he still finished exactly where he's valued right now. He is one of the most talented receivers in the game. I won't give him the top spot, but he is for sure up there. It's an offense that has a ton of potential, and you might be worried because we've never seen how he fits into the system, but you've got to imagine there's a sizable role for a guy like D-Hop. So, yeah, I could definitely see top 5 finish for him this year. So, yeah, I'm liking him.
So I'm going to – some of the numbers that stood out to me when I looked at why I'm going to be swiping right on DeAndre Hopkins. He led the league in receiving touchdowns in the red zone over the last 3 seasons at 29. Considering Kyler as a thrower to him, he was the top deep ball thrower with 61.2% of deep balls completed last year. So DeAndre Hopkins will be lining up on the outside much more than in the slot. Fitzgerald will have the slot pretty much locked up. Hopkins lined up 70% of the time outside the numbers last year, so he's going to get a lot of deep ball action. I think Talon's just going to win out here, and he will be a top 5 receiver. I was close to super liking on this, but coronavirus will prevent the chemistry from meshing as quickly as it could have without the virus. So that's why I'm just going to settle with the swipe right.
I gotta be honest, guys. I'm swiping left on Hopkins this year.
Really?
I do have a couple contentions with him joining this new scheme. There was a lot of hype with Kingsbury coming to the NFL about this air raid offense, and I got to be honest, it was pretty much bullshit. The Cards were 18th in pass attempts per game. Like that doesn't sound like air raid to me. Maybe this was because of a lack of that number one receiver, that alpha receiver. But I got to be honest with this coronavirus situation. Will will him and Kyler be able to develop that kind of chemistry and be a wide receiver one? I don't know. Um, and there's definitely, if you look at his time in Houston, the most competent receiver was Will Fuller, who spent more time on the IR than on the field. Will Fuller was non-existent. And now he's in a room with Christian Kirk, and Larry Fitzgerald, who won't keep him off the field, obviously, but they're just good targets who will probably both see around 100 targets at the very least. I know Larry Fitzgerald's old. He's an old man. He's a grandpa now. But I feel like he's going to be a factor in this offense for at least one more year. I do like Kyler, but I would say I don't know if you guys agree. Do you think this is a downgrade at quarterback?
Yeah.
Yeah, for now, I mean, considering two of the points that you made with it not being an air raid offense, the Cardinals did target the wide receiver position the most of any team in the NFL last year. They targeted the wide receivers. 69.8% of their targets were to wide receivers. And Baker Mayfield was the only rookie quarterback who didn't see a jump in he was a rookie in 2018. He was the only quarterback from that class to not throw the ball more in 2019. So I think Kyler will definitely be letting go that rock a little more. He was like a fifth grader entering middle school. He went through everything that he had to. Although this is 1 year, he's exiting a man. And yes, freshman high school boys are men. That's what I'm saying.
Stats man, Pat. So here's what I have to say. I do see what you're saying about more competition for targets. But I expect Arizona's pass attempts to rise. That's what happens when you get I'll give him top 3 wide receiver talent in the league. So yeah, I think that's sure to rise. And interestingly enough, like I mentioned, Hopkins was wide receiver 5 last year, and you said Arizona was 18th in the league in pass attempts. Houston was 19th.
Okay.
So he's done it before. Even if it stays where it is, I like him to repeat or improve. So
I love that counter, Ryan.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a great point. I think personally, it's just a preference to take a running back in this spot. I feel like it's just a safer option than a guy who's just changing offenses in this COVID-19 world. But I don't know. It's like a girl on Tinder. Like you're gonna have to use a top pick. You're gonna have to use a top pick on DeAndre Hopkins. Is he worth one of your 10? Or how many top picks do you get? I don't know.
I mean, 10. I think if we're gonna relate this, you're gonna have to buy her flowers at least twice a month, which might be
okay.
You're gonna have to take her out to dinner at least once a week. So I mean, you're really gonna have to treat her right, but hopefully that investment works out.
So we're all bringing Tinder to the table because I also have a comparison, and it comes from very recent experience. So I recently, just yesterday, started hopping on the app again. And then I realized that a lot of girls now have pictures in their profiles with masks on. And not all of them. Like they have some full.
This?
Here's what I'm gonna say. Hopkins is in a new system. We don't know what to expect behind the mask, but from what we've seen, eyes, body, everything else, one of the best in the game. So are you really gonna not swipe because you're like, wow, she might not have a 10 out of 10 smile, or wow, like her nose might be weirdly shaped at the bottom under that mask? No, I'm willing to bet on the eyes, on the cheekbones, on the bod, on the bio, on the music taste, whatever it is. Everything else is there. There's just this one question mark, and I'm trusting that everything else will make up for it, even if it's a little bit of a dip.
All right. That's enough. That's enough on Hopkins. We got two swipe rights, one swipe left. Let's keep moving along. Let's go with Washington not Redskins. Are they
Not Redskins.
Don't say it. Don't say the R word. Don't say it.
the Washington Warriors? Is that what I heard there?
I've heard Red Wolves.
Yeah, I think Red Wolves or Red Tails, which would be paying homage to the Tuskegee Airmen. Yeah, those are some of the options.
Okay, then we'll just call him the Washington football team. Terry McLaurin, who is going pick 51, wide receiver 24. Ryan owns him in our dynasty league, so I'm gonna let him take it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna let him start.
Ryan is also super liking, so I feel like that is where we should start anyway. So basically, the offense was atrocious last year. There's no denying that. But as Pat pointed out, second-year quarterbacks, except for Baker apparently, love throwing the ball more. They're trusted more by their offense. And I honestly am not buying off Haskins yet. I don't think he's going to be a superstar. Do I think he's the franchise quarterback? Maybe. He ended up in the worst situation possible, basically. Like, if you went last year and you said, I have a rookie quarterback, I'm going to put him in a position to succeed, would there be a team you would have put behind the Washington offense and coaching staff and just basically everything Haskins had to work with? Because I thought on it for a good 45 seconds when I was writing up my thoughts, and I could not. So I think Haskins has to improve now that he has an actual NFL head coach calling plays. No offense, Jay Gruden. And his talent is clearly there. I think the offense is going to improve. I think they invested a lot at running back, which is perfect because it doesn't take touches really away from McLaurin, but it takes the defense away from being literally only game planning for him. So yeah, I'm liking him at wide receiver 24.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you, Ryan. I'm not.
You're
super
giving the
liking,
super. Oh.
Nah, I'm not super liking. I'm just gonna give it a swipe right because there are some question marks, but and Haskins being one of the big ones. But if you look at the numbers when he was playing on the field with Haskins, he got more targets, more catches, and averaged more yards per game with Haskins than he did with who was it, Keenum?
Oh, I think it was Keenum.
Yeah, then with Keenum on the field.
Who wanted to watch the Redskins? I mean the Washington football team last year.
Yeah,
Washington football team.
It's a dangerous territory.
Yeah, my bad.
The Washington football team I didn't watch much of them. But it is, if Haskins can take the leap, I feel like Terry has a huge ceiling. There is no competition in that wide receiver room. He should dominate the target share. And I'm a believer in this kind of talent. As a rookie, putting up 58 catches, 919 yards, and 7 touchdowns, those are good numbers for a rookie, and I think he can be the alpha wide receiver there. And it's not a prolific offense, but hopefully it'll take a step forward with Ron Rivera. And I'm buying into Terry McLaurin at pick 51.
Worth noting, he played 14 games last year and finished wide receiver 29. Had he scored, let me do some quick mental math. Had he scored 18 more points between those 2 weeks, he would have been the wide receiver 24, and that's as a rookie. So seeing as he was averaging 13.7 points per game, you have to imagine he would have eclipsed wide receiver 24 last year. So essentially, you're either betting that he does not improve or gets worse if you're not liking him at this value.
Yeah, I'm also going to swipe right on Terry McLaurin. I know, kind of boring. There's no strife in this, but the thing is, there's two names I want to say. It's Steven Sims and Kelvin Harmon. And you're going to say to yourself, who the fuck are they? These are starting wide receivers on the Washington football team alongside of Terry McLaurin.
Good save. Good save.
And he's yeah, I know. I was thinking, and he's going to be the one who's going to be the only surefire target for Dwayne Haskins. He came from Ohio State, and that's the equivalent of a high school that has like 1,000 kids in each grade. It's hard to make any sports team at those high school. At Ohio State, Terry McLaurin didn't see the field too much because he was with guys like, I don't know if he was there with Michael Thomas, but he was with guys of that caliber like Paris Campbell. Right. And when you think about that, he clearly has the talent. He had 9.9 yards per target, which might not be sustainable, but was ridiculous last year. He's on a bad team, but I think at wide receiver 24, that's a great evaluation to take him.
Yeah, Pat, you mentioned Kelvin Harmon and Steve Sims. That is like a girl on Tinder with just no attractive friends.
Oh, the segue.
And the friends are so unattractive that it's just making Terry look like a gem in the like a diamond in the rough. I don't know.
Audience, you gotta respect Tommy's ability to think on the fly. He was given 3 men, and he said, "How can I equate this to females on Tinder?" He did it for you. You gotta love it.
Yeah, and unless anyone has anything else to add, I think we can move along to James Conner, Pittsburgh Steelers running back.
So I was just gonna remind everyone. Pat mentioned Terry McLaurin was a receiver at Ohio State. Do we remember who the quarterback was at that time?
Oh, Mr. Haskins?
Mr. Haskins.
Yeah, that's a good sign.
That just can't hurt you.
Yeah.
All right. James Conner, Tom.
Well, James Conner is going at pick 47, running back 20. And I hate to do this because I'm the host. I'm supposed to delegate. But I'm going to lead us off because I'm bringing out the super light.
No, you are not. Are you kidding me?
It's a surprising move. But you gotta look into it. Let's dive into
it. Look into it.
In the games he played last season, he averaged 14.6 points per game. Okay, tied for which was all right, never mind. He was 0.1 points per game less than Josh Jacobs. And it was good enough for the 16th best RB on a points per game basis. Now you look at this year. And okay, the Steelers offense was a shit show last year. We had Mason Rudolph, we had Duck Hodges, Roethlisberger's back. This is a better offense, more touchdown potential for Conner. And not to mention, it's a contract year for Conner. He's going to be highly motivated. And then you look at the recent comments from Mike Tomlin. He called himself a feature running back coach and called Conner his featured back. And we've seen this in the past from Tomlin, who consistently gave Bell 20-plus touches per game. We saw what Conner was able to do 2 years ago, getting a ton of touches. And I just love running backs who catch passes out of the backfield. 71 targets in 2018 for Conner. I get the injury concerns. It's definitely a problem, but at pick 47, I feel like it's worth the risk for a guy who, if he's playing, he's locked in as at worst an RB2 and has the RB1 ceiling.
All right. I'm swiping left. So I'm just going to put that out there really quick. I feel like it's a lose-lose here. Either he is the feature back and plays who knows how many games, but considering he came into the league, played 14, next season played 13, last season played 10, it just seems like the more workload he gets, the less he plays. So, 1, I do not trust him to stay healthy, which is always someone I stay away from. 2, I'm not even sold with Tomlin's comments on the fact that he's going to be really a feature back. I'm seeing more of a committee in Pittsburgh. They keep investing in the running back position. And I'm just thinking if he's even if he plays 16 in the committee, 20 is possible, but optimistic. I just am thinking that either injuries or lack of touches to keep him from getting those said injuries is really just going to hold him from this 20 threshold. So yeah, I'm swiping left.
Yeah, so you're right about them continuously investing in the running back position. They already had Jalen Samuels and Benny Snell, and they picked Anthony McFarland in the 4th round. I don't think we can put too much on Mike Tomlin's words when he says that Connor's his feature back, because with 1 year left, if that changes, he's not really going to have to deal with Connor being angry at him for that long. So I think it being a contract year and them drafting a running back right before that contract year is pretty telling. I think they're going to try and see which of those 3 young running backs will be their running back of the future. The quad strain and the AC joint sprain, it was his 2nd shoulder sprain of his career, of the last 3 years that he endured last year, and he also had the quad strain. So the injuries are a concern. He's got to play a full season before I see him as a starting running back, as he's valued as a mid-tier RB2, and I don't really see that right now.
I mean, this investing in the running back that you bring up, I don't know. Like, Benny Snell was a 5th round pick. McFarland was a 4th round pick. It's not like you can have picks on those guys who don't really pan out ever, and I don't think we saw anything from Benny Snell. And McFarland as a 4th rounder, like, I feel like that's more of a pick for the future. I don't expect to see too much from him this year. I kind of got to disagree. I don't see a committee. I think if he's healthy, I expect him to be top 14, top 13, top 12 maybe, if he's on a points per game basis, if he's staying healthy. And then, the injuries are the one concern to me. But you're not investing too much into him. It's like probably your 3rd running back at this point in the draft, maybe your 2nd.
I would hate him as my fucking 2nd.
I wouldn't. I think he has the ceiling of a top 12 running back.
I think he has the joints of a bottom 5 running back.
Arena.
I just if you look at the running backs who are going behind him, like, there's nobody that I could say has that kind of ceiling, like, in an offense that has the potential to be a top offense in the league.
Jonathan Taylor.
Taylor's a good point. I still think the Steelers' offense as a whole should be better than the Colts. And Marlon Mack is in Indianapolis, but I don't know. I'm a big Connor fan.
Yeah, we could move on to the next guy. I wasn't really going to say anything of value. For the listeners, you probably would have turned off your device after you heard what I said, because it was so pitiful and waste of
Damn.
All right, then
keep your head up.
Yeah, we'll wrap up the Fantasy Tinder segment of the podcast with one of Pat's favorite players, Danny Dimes, quarterback of the New York Giants, who's going pick 115, quarterback 14. As a Giants fan, I'll let you take this one, Pat. Where are we swiping on Daniel Jones this year?
This one's pretty easy. It's a super like. There's one quarterback in the history of the game, this storied game, that in his rookie season has had 350 yards and 5 touchdowns with no picks in a single game. That's Daniel Jones. He had over 300 yards in almost half of his games last year. His fumbling is somewhat of an issue. He had 18, not lost, but 18 fumbles in 12 games. But
that is crazy.
That has been one of his focuses in the offseason. He's been putting on not a lot of muscle, but he's been getting leaner. You could see it in some of the photos, New York Post or some of those good websites. Another thing, Xavier McKinney is the only plug and play defender that they added to that defense. So the Giants are still going to be giving up a good amount of points. They might be down a lot in the fourth quarter. So he's going to be passing a good amount, and they're getting Evan Ingram back. Sterling Shepard's recovered from his 2 concussions last year. And then you got Golden Tate and Darius Slayton. They got so many weapons. I didn't even say Saquon. So, yeah, I think this offense is going to be exciting. I'm going to say it right now. He's going to be a top 10 fantasy quarterback this year.
Wow. Okay. So I have a conundrum here, but before I get to that, I'm just going to say I can only imagine I'm confident that Daniel Jones will not have fumbling problems just because I can only imagine what his hand strength has improved like over quarantine if he's been having a similar quarantine to all of us. The grip has to be there. But what I will say is this is what confuses me a little bit about Fantasy Tinder, if I'm being honest. Like, I think it's a okay evaluation. I think 14 is a fair quarterback thing, but it is never a pick I would make. I am someone who's going to be buying Kyler or Josh or Russ in like the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th round, wherever they fall to. And then I like taking a backup quarterback. I know that's not something everyone does, but if I'm doing that, I'm taking that in like the 15th, 16th round. So I never really see myself picking the QB 14 or using my 11th round pick on a quarterback. So I don't really know what that constitutes, but seeing as I'm not fond of picking him there, I guess I'll go with left. But like Pat mentioned, he's got the potential. It's just not my strategy, and he's not proven enough that I consider him a Lamar-esque sleeper like I did last year, where I was looking to get my starting quarterback in Lamar in the 11th round. So yeah,
I'll wrap us up here then. I was hesitant, but I am gonna swipe right on Jones. Last year, you look at the numbers, he only played 12 games, but on a per game basis, he was the quarterback 15, averaging 16.5 points per game. He's got one of the best supporting casts at the quarterback position with Barkley, Shepard, Tate, Slayton, and with an improved offensive line, which I think all Giants fans are really hoping for. And heading into his second year, I feel like there's got to be some improvement there. The one thing I will say is there's a lot of options at the quarterback position that I like in the later rounds, like with Ben Roethlisberger, Cam Newton, Tannehill going after him. But I don't have a problem with it if you believe in his talent and him taking a step forward. So yeah, that's why I'm gonna have to swipe right on Danny Dimes.
fair enough.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
You didn't even mention my late round quarterbacks I like in Bridgewater and Minshew. So yeah, there really is a lot there late.
Yeah, it's just a position that you can definitely wait on and kind of just pick your kind of guy. Like, just pick the guy that you believe in. And
my last 2 cents on Daniel Jones. I think personally they're going to use the number 4 overall pick, Andrew Thomas, at right tackle for his first year and then move him to left tackle for his second year. So Nate Solder will still be there as somewhat of a weak link on that offensive line. He's going to be better protected than last year, so the fumbles will go down, but Solder's got to do better than last year if the Giants want any hope of getting 500 or better.
I believe it. That'll wrap up the Fantasy Tinder segment, and we will wrap up today's podcast with a new segment. We're going to the fantasy court today, and to kick this episode off, our honorable judge, Pat, will oversee a debate between me and Ryan discussing whether Adam Thielen will be a top 12 wide receiver in fantasy. I was looking at our rankings. Ryan has him ranked as player 48, wide receiver 24. I have him 19 spots higher as overall player 29, wide receiver 12. Ryan, since you are the guest on my podcast, I will let you kick off the debate.
See, I don't even know if I want to go first or last because I feel like it doesn't even matter. My case is just too compelling. Ladies and gentlemen of the my phone just turned off. You guys still hear me?
We can hear you.
All right, sounds good. We're back now. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, today I will be making my case as to why Adam Thielen is not a wide receiver 1. But I feel like last year he made that case for me. If you look at the stats, let's start with the situation. Couldn't stay healthy last year, played 10 games. He's turning 30, and he has Kirk Cousins at the helm, who people often say gets a little too much hate, but either way, he is no star in this league. He had one game over 10 points without a touchdown last year, which I believe points to some serious touchdown dependency. And I don't, if I'm being honest, expect a rise in targets with Diggs' departure. I think Jefferson is fairly NFL ready. And I think Irv Smith is going to burst out. They still have Kyle Rudolph. And with the focus their offense has on the run game, specifically Dalvin Cook, I expect Dalvin Cook and the 2 tight ends to be on the field a lot and catching a lot of balls. And here's what I consider to be the most damning statistic of them all. If you look at a points per game basis, quoted by Thomas Griffin as being the most accurate indicator, seeing as injuries can drive people down lists they don't deserve to be driven down, points per game basis, I stopped counting at 40 receivers that had higher points per game than Adam Thielen.
Wow.
40.
Is that the end of your case? Because
That is.
I've got some things to say.
Is that
You
true?
can go ahead. That is true.
This might be over if that's true.
That's true.
Nah, it's not over, Pat. It's far
Go
from
for
over.
it, Tom. I rest my case.
Let me lay out some history for the jury, for the judge. 2017, I'll take you back there. 142 targets, 91 catches, 240 fantasy points. Wide receiver 8 in fantasy. 2018, 151 targets, 113 catches, 307 fantasy points. He was the wide receiver 7 that year, but those numbers would have been good enough to be the wide receiver 2 last year, ahead of Chris Godwin, only behind Michael Thomas. And then you look at last year. So he's only 2 years removed from an unbelievable season. Last year, he averaged 16.5 points per game before his hamstring injury in week 7.
Oh, I was going to say, that's not what I saw.
Yeah. After his hamstring injury, he played 4 games, and his numbers were terrible. They were awful. It was bad. I admit that. But you have to think the hamstring injury played a major factor in that. I can't believe it wasn't even mentioned.
When was this sustained? When was this
Week
injury
7.
sustained? Oh, so I'm going to factor in his horrible week 6. I'm going to attribute his horrible week 16 performance to his week 7 hamstring injury.
It was only 4 games post the injury, and they were terrible numbers. You look at the first 6 weeks, he averaged almost 17 points per game, which would have been top 8. It would have been top 8 in the league. And then he gets hurt. He comes back. Yeah, he's playing. He's obviously not 100% when you see his numbers dip like that. And you didn't even mention it in your case. Like, you're accusing Thielen of playing poorly, and you ignored a huge piece of evidence. The hamstring.
I did ignore 10 weeks later that he pulled his hamstring.
Now we get
week 7.
The departure of Stephon Diggs. We're opening up 94 targets, 63 catches, 1,130 yards, and 6 touchdowns to the only proven wide receiver in mini. And I think with that alone, we could see numbers closer to his 2017, maybe even the 2018 performance. His only new competition for targets is the rookie Justin Jefferson. who I actually do think will be a good player, and I think he'll play a factor in this 2020 offense. But I feel like he's got to bounce back. The hamstring injury obviously impacted him. His numbers looked bad after that injury. But before that, he was playing as a top 8 guy, and we're talking top 12. He did top 12 in 2018. He did top 12 in 2017. He's the number 1 receiver in this offense. He's going to be top 12 in 2020. You can book that.
Yeah, okay. So we're just going to ignore the fact – or no, let me rephrase. How many receivers over the years do you think had their last prime years as a 27, 28-year-old? And do you think people sat there when they were 30 and coming off a bad year and were like, you know what? They're going to flash back to when they were a younger, better receiver.
It was 2 years ago, though, and it was a hamstring injury in 2019.
That apparently ruined 10 weeks of his season.
He
I'll buy that.
He only played 4 weeks after the hamstring.
Yes, but you're saying the reason he scored literally 0 points, I played against him in the fantasy finals and won because he scored 0 points. You're going to attribute that to his 9 weeks earlier hamstring injury.
I mean, it's a lingering injury. I know it was sustained in week 7, but that's got to linger, and that's why he only played 4 weeks for the rest of the season. But you look at 16.5 points per game before that injury, it's not like he just stopped being talented or Kirk Cousins just stopped looking at him. He obviously was not playing 100%. He's bouncing back this year. I leave this to the judge, Pat Mormile. Where are you making your decision?
You know what? It would help me a lot if I could hear just a minute or two of arguments about players that he's better or worse than.
I actually have some of that prepared. I'm okay with that.
Let me hear what Ryan has to give us.
All right. So you got your staples. You got your DeAndre Hopkins. I don't think anyone thinks Thielen's beating him. Julio, Tyreek Hill, Mike Thomas, Devontae Adams. Just guys, echelons above.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got Allen Robinson. I don't see how you could like him less than Thielen. He's younger. He's got the same amount of control of his offense. I mean, if Foles is there, I think he honestly has a better quarterback. You got Galladay, who, again, has proven –
better than Kirk Cousins? No way.
I'm definitely buying into that.
Pat, that's ridiculous.
Okay. Regardless, is Allen Robinson
perjuring himself?
Is Allen Robinson going to be better than Thielen?
Yes.
Yeah, he has a much higher floor.
Galladay, DJ Moore, Chris Godwin. I don't know what that puts us at.
That puts us at him probably at 11.
10 or 11.
It's 10, I think.
So then you got Juju, Amari, Odell.
You got to get Juju. Yeah, sure. Amari, one of the Rams has to. You got your Bengals receiver, whoever is the number 1 there. Probably Tyler Boyd, if you're asking me. I mean, one of the Browns should finish top 12. They did last year. Jarvis was.
What the names you're giving: Juju Smith-Schuster, OBJ, Robert. I mean, I like some of these players. I actually do have Juju a bit higher than Thielen, but Juju to me is risky. Whereas Thielen, we've seen what he can do for 2
Yes,
straight
Juju
games.
hasn't proven himself, but Thielen, who's coming off 4 horrendous games. Tom, how are we supposed to know that this catastrophic hamstring injury won't linger into this season?
It's like he's a year removed from it. You're comparing 10 weeks to a whole year.
I'm exaggerating, but that's my point. I'm saying that it's ridiculous to think that this is going to linger, that this lingered 9 weeks past its
He will see more targets than Woods, than OBJ, than Galladay, for sure.
Why would he see more targets than Galladay?
Galladay's not
that's fair. That's fair.
I could see him seeing more targets than Mike Evans even. I think this is going to be a big bounce back for Thielen.
Okay. I have to make my ruling at some point. For Ryan, one of his statements that definitely stood out to me was that he found over 40 players with a better points per game last year. Tommy did make a great point in saying that he had almost 17 points per game before the injury, and he was top 8 in 2017 and 2018. And given the names that we were discussing, I think Adam Thielen is safer than a lot of those names at the back end of the first round.
Let's fucking go, baby.
This is fucking ridiculous.
Ryan did give me memories of AJ Green in terms of a player who's about to turn 30 and had an injury, and we're like, oh, he's going to turn back, but that didn't happen for him. I think that will happen for Thielen, and I think Tommy, specifically with comparing the players, made some good arguments. So I'm going to have to favor it in favor of Tommy.
Let's go.
Let's just move on.
Yeah,
let's just move on. This is ridiculous.
I am 1-0 in the fantasy court. It feels great. Let's wrap this up with another court case. We have Pat and Ryan. I will be judging this court case. Is Nick Chubb going to be an RB1? Whoever wants to lead off can lead it off. I will hand the baton to Pat.
Yeah, so okay. Ryan started off last time, so I'm going to start off this time. So a stat that makes a lot of people scared when they think about Nick Chubb. He had 15 carries inside the 5-yard line in 2019, and these were his stats. Negative 14 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Wow.
So the Cleveland Browns offensive line took a huge hit when they lost Kevin Zeitler to the Giants, but they are clearly investing in that same O-line by drafting top 10 Jedrick Wills and also adding Jack Conklin, who was a first-round pick as well, in free agency. So when we're comparing Nick Chubb with and without Kareem Hunt, he had 19.25 carries per game without Hunt, 18 carries per game with Hunt. Not much of a difference. He caught 13 less balls in the same amount of games without Hunt. You don't even have to rely on that because he had the second most yards of any running back last year, and he had the third most carries. So you know he's going to be getting that work. I'll let Ryan make his opening arguments.
Sure. We're not going to sit here and pretend that Hunt wasn't a great player. I mean, Chubb wasn't a great player last season. But a lot of his success came before Hunt came onto the scene. After Hunt started playing games, after his suspension ran out, Chubb averaged 13 points a game. And as I mentioned, Tom's favorite stat, points per game basis, 22 running backs did better than 13 points a game on the season. Well, actually, there was one tie. 21 did better and one tied. I don't remember who the tie was. Last year, Hunt did what he did after 8 weeks, sure. He was probably fresh legs. You could argue that Chubb may see a slightly larger role, but Stefanski last year loved dumping the ball off. Cook was top 10 in receptions for running backs last year. And you have to imagine that most of the passing work in this offense is going to go to Hunt. And if you dispute that, I have a stat for you. On the season.
Let me just –
What?
Stefanski was with the Vikings last year, just right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Dalvin Cook being top 10 in receptions for running backs is a product of Stefanski's play calling. Hunt finished last season playing literally 8 less games than Nick Chubb with more receptions than him on the season.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm fine with that.
So you have to imagine, unless they're just going to start running the ball more than they did, that's the only way that Chubb's numbers would really increase on a points per game basis. So if you're looking at 13 points per game, that's not really top 12 material. I'm going to get the listing out of the way now because this list is much more compelling. Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Ezekiel Elliott, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, Derrick Henry, Miles Sanders.
Miles Sanders is not.
These aren't in order, by the way. You don't think Miles Sanders?
He's not that. We're not saying that that's a given that he's going to be ahead of him when he hasn't proven nearly
He
as.
was the running back 15 sharing a backfield.
Okay.
Regardless, we'll throw him into this little pile I have at the end. So that leaves us with 6. Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Oh, you're gonna play that card to Tommy?
I'm gonna play that card. I'm gonna throw Tom's love of his life in his face. And then, so that leaves us with 4 more spots to fill. So you just need 4 of these players to do better than Chubb, who is essentially only running the ball this year. Aaron Jones, Joe Mixon, Kenyon Drake, Austin Eckler, Todd Gurley, Leonard Fournette, Chris Carson, Melvin, Jonathan Taylor, and Josh Jacobs. 4 of those guys need to outperform Mr. Only Running Down Nick Chubb.
I don't know if we can say only running the ball. He still had 11 catches in 8 games with Kareem Hunt there. So that would be 22 over the course of a season.
I agree.
And then I think in this instance, considering the Browns, they had such huge expectations before the season. This was a team that a lot of people were saying possibly was going to win the AFC North. So when you get off in the locker room, when a team gets off to an unfortunate start, I think the stats on the first half of the season are more indicative of a player's future usage than later in the season when they're not really going for a playoff spot anymore and they were already out of the race. I think Eckler is one of those names that you said would be ahead of him. Jones, I agree with. And then if we're going to assume that Sanders is ahead, that would put him at RB10. And I don't see anyone else that is going to get ahead of him. He had the 3rd most rushes last year, and he's going to continue to get that work. Sports Illustrated in an article said that Kevin Stefanski loves to have a zone attacking offense, and in the Browns reporters also agree that Nick Chubb has better vision than Kareem Hunt, so that would point to using Chubb more on the ground. And you said that he could possibly. Was that a fly?
There was a bug. I had to kill it.
So you're right that he could have even more of a share. He could get over 300 carries and get somewhat of a Derrick Henry role, which I think would nestle him safely in the top 12.
I don't know that you have Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry and David Njoku on a team and you have a Derrick Henry type of runner in the backfield. I just want to correct you.
It happened pretty much last year. I mean, the only difference is Austin Hooper. He had 298 last year, and they only added Austin Hooper. If you think they're going to throw that much more, I don't think it's going to be that much different. But
I think Odell's going to bounce back a little bit. But just to correct you, I listed 8 guys, and then I started listing that pile, which you chose 3 of to do better, which would put Chubb at 12, not 10. So
12.
already on the border, and that's assuming Tom agrees with you and doesn't believe that Gurley, Fournette, Carson, Melvin, Josh Jake, or I don't remember. But yeah, so I just think that the pile is there. Even if Melvin doesn't work out or Fournette doesn't work out as they have in the past, I think Gurley, one of those 3, is going to be top 12. And yeah, I've said all I have to say, really.
I'm ready to make my ruling. This was going to be a tough case for Pat to win, I got to be honest, because I was trying to leave my own thoughts out of this and just make a fair ruling. But I do have to say I'm not a huge fan of Chubb. Pat made a compelling case. The Stefanski zone read scheme, I like that. I like the 298 carries he got last year. Ryan he gave me too many names.
Yeah.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Yes.
I'm gonna have to rule in favor of Ryan, but it was a pretty even debate.
Hitting 500 right now, baby.
We had.
Ryan, I didn't give you enough credit for how close the last argument was. I think the key factor in the Thielen argument was that he was a top 8 wide receiver 2 of the last 3 years, and I think he's had so much time to recover I think that he's going to be a top 12 wide receiver.
All right.
All right, well, I'm 1-0. I'm undefeated in the fantasy court. I can't be stopped right now. I'm feeling good. I hope if you stayed through the whole episode, I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll catch you next Wednesday. Peace, everyone.
See ya.